Dr. Christy Ennis. Today's video is for you if you have pain or tightness right in the back of that thigh that you have been stretching and stretching and stretching, probably in multiple ways, and it doesn't seem to be getting better. In fact, not only is it not getting better, but it may even be getting worse. If that's the case, a very common cause is the sciatic nerve versus the hamstring muscle. So the hamstring muscles themselves can sometimes seem like they're the culprit, even though it's the nerve, because of a couple reasons. Number one, the sciatic nerve actually innervates the hamstring muscles. So it gets those hamstring muscles to work and it causes sensation in them. Number two is the location. So the sciatic nerve runs down the back of the leg and the hamstring muscles also run down the back of the leg. So clearly, right, it can be one or the other. So let's go over how you can tell the difference a little bit. So there are a couple different tests that you can do to see, is it the hamstring or is it the nerve? And a couple things to keep in mind too, without even doing these tests, is if you have numbness and tingling, if you have back pain. That doesn't necessarily mean it is the nerve, but that's a much more likely indicator that the nerve is involved. Now, this first test that we're going to do is called a slump test because you really literally are going to slump and have poor posture, which I'll never say again. So to do this, you're going to sit in a chair and you're going to do one side, whichever side is the side that's bothering you. You're going to take your hands behind your back and you're going to let your body literally slump forward, right? Have bad posture. Now, if this already starts to cause pain in the back of your leg, that's a pretty good indicator that it is not coming from the hamstring muscle because we are using the trunk. We haven't done anything with that hamstring at all yet. So you're already in a positive test if this is uncomfortable. Now, let's say it's my left leg and I'm here and I kick out this leg and I bring this foot up and I'm like, wow! But I lift that head up and I'm like, hey, not so bad, okay? Again, haven't touched the hamstring, just the other end where that nerve tension is, so that is much more likely to be the sciatic nerve. Now, the other way to look at this too is if I sit right up and bring this leg out and I'm like, woo, that's really tight, but I move this foot a little bit, point it down, and I now no longer have tension through the back of the leg. Again, more likely a nerve. If none of that changes, then you might want to lead more towards that muscle. A second test you can do if that one just wasn't working for you or you couldn't really figure it out is lying on your back. And again, it doesn't have to be on the ground either. It can be right in your bed. So don't worry if it's uncomfortable to get down onto the ground. You're going to take your handsies and you're going to bring them behind the leg. If that in and of itself is just not okay, you can use a strap or a sheet to bring that thigh up towards you. So we're going up to roughly 90 degrees. You don't have to measure it, but try to imagine in your head that that's about 90 degrees. From here, I'm going to flex my foot, so bringing my toes towards me, and I'm going to straighten out my leg. If I start to feel a lot of tension or tightness back here, that's where you're going to stop, and then you're going to point that foot forward. If you're like, whoa, that's so much better, that is much more of a nerve thing than it is a muscle thing, because again, we haven't changed the hamstring there, okay? Sometimes it's actually just so darn irritated that you get to here and it's like, oh my gosh, and then you bring it back down and you go, oh my gosh. So if that's the case, bring it back down lower and then point the foot and see if that goes away. If it doesn't, again, more likely that there's probably a bit of a muscle issue more so than a nerve issue. And then we have one more test you can try as well. This last test is honestly my least favorite because a lot of times it just puts strain on the back anyways. But if you're like, no, I love this position, you can go ahead and do it, especially if the other two just didn't work for you. So you're going to bring your leg out straight with your toes up. Again, remember it's my left leg that's the issue. From here, I'm going to bring my chest forward and you're actually going to let it round a little bit. Now, if I get to here and I'm going, woo, that's pretty tight, could still be hamstring or calf, right? Now, if I point those toes, and again, it's a little less in the hamstring, then most likely you've got a nerve thing. Now, again, remember this nerve does all different things all over. So the other option then too would be in that flex position, okay, lift that head and trunk a little. Now is that gone? And if it's still not, again, right, you do this and maybe it's still there, but you now lift that head and trunk up and now it's gone. Much more likely that's that darn sciatic nerve again. And so now we are going to go over what do you do if it actually is the nerve versus the muscle? So we're going to go over some ways to actually do what we call flossing or gliding the nerve, because nerves definitely need to be treated differently than muscles. They do not in any way, shape, or form like to be stretched and held in that stretch position. It just irritates them to no end. So we want to get them to glide in their groove. So we're going to go back to actually those test positions, and since I'm already on the floor, that's where I'm starting. So again, using that towel or sheet or your hands, you're going to come up here to about that 90-degree angle, flex that foot, and then straighten until you're like, woo, tension. You don't have to say woo. Then you're going to come back down just a little bit so that you're relieving some of that, so it's not an intense sensation, and then you're moving that foot. Now remember, this is supposed to be gentle, so if this is really too much, go ahead and bend that leg a little bit more, or even just start with a bent little leg and straighten. You're going to shoot for about 5 to 10 repetitions, and if you can do this twice a day without it being too uncomfortable, that's what you want to do. If that first test was positive, and this is the most comfortable position for you to be in, we're going to go over how to glide this nerve in the seated position. So again, very similar to our test. This time we're going to go straighten out that leg. As I lift my toes up, I'm actually going to lift my head up and almost arch just a touch. And this should be relieving, not symptom causing, okay? And then from here, I'm gonna point those toes and bring that head down, which might be a touch more irritating. Again, think gentle here. We don't wanna be at a 10 out of 10, just that little bit of discomfort. Now, if that's too much to start, you can even just start with the leg, right? And add that point and flex, just like we did on the ground. The other option would be to make sure you bring the leg back down each time too, right? So this first starting position where I'm extending up, and then you can come and bring it back down, let the leg relax, and let that head and trunk bend a little bit. If it is super painful to bend the head and trunk, please do just stick with the leg. Remember, gentle on the nerves, not aggressive. That's important. Okay, so if none of those are positive, but you're still having pain, what the heck do you do? So oftentimes what I'll see is that people have some muscle just tightness and blithness in there, that just like if you have a knot in a rope that's a loose knot and you pull the ends, that knot gets tighter. So sometimes you actually just need to do a little bit of soft tissue work into that muscle to get it to loosen up before you stretch, which is what I'm going to show you now. So to work out that soft tissue mess that might be going on in there, we're going to do a little bit of easing into the muscle to get blood flow going, and then kind of aggressively, or a little more aggressively, get into some of those tighter spots. So I'm going to use the Derma Edge, and I like this sitting rather than standing, and I will link this below. This is something I created. You're going to go right up the back of the leg, and you may even notice that it's a little bumpy. It certainly is on me because mine are quite tight. And this, like I said, we're getting fluid, motion is lotion, going and getting those layers to glide over a little better. So this alone actually can, ooh, that was loud, can help make things feel a little bit better in and of itself. Once you do that and you're like, okay, not as bumpy, not as uncomfortable, and it's a light pressure, you're gonna take a tennis ball or a lacrosse ball. And if you found some really tight spots in there, that's where you're gonna put the tennis ball. So I'm gonna put it right underneath there. And then I'm gonna, then we're gonna floss the muscle this time. And see, just like that, it actually is a little more uncomfortable as you straighten that leg out versus when that leg is bent. And you're doing this until it feels a little bit better as well. Now, if the nerve is involved, please don't do this one because now you are taking the nerve and going smoosh. So they don't like being stretched, they don't like being smooshed either. And lastly, sometimes it's not even the hamstring. It may be muscle, but not the hamstring. Hip flexors, believe it or not, play a big role in causing a pelvic rotation, which then tightens the hamstrings. And I will link a video for that as well for you to take a look at. So thank you so much. If you like this video, click that little thumbs up button and subscribe for more. Thank you so much for tuning in today, you guys. If you want to get rid of pain anywhere in your body on your own with just one little portable device, don't forget to check out the Derma Edge. I created this while I was going through Lyme disease to help get rid of my pain on my own, nice and gently. It's patented and made in the US, actually right down the road in Laconia from where my office is. So don't forget, you can click the link here or in the description to order your own.